So you are going to love today's video. It may be the mother of all RV stories that involves fraud, and it sure seems like that to me. It's a story that Ron Burdge told me when we were wrapping up our most recent interview the other day. We were pretty much done with the interview, and I was just curious and had to ask. Check out this one and let me know your thoughts in the comments.
With no names being mentioned, I can tell you about one that we just got in that takes me back to 2018. I had a case in 2018 against a Florida dealer and a factory where an RV was damaged on its way to the dealership from the factory. And then they sort of patched it up and fixed it as best they cared to bother doing at the time, and then sold it without telling the buyer. Well, that one, if I recall correctly, was around $300,000 or $400,000. Well, we just got one in that's 1.1 million, where the exact same thing happened, but the damage is a whole heck of a lot worse than that. It was involved in a collision and on its way literally from the factory to the dealer. And the collision was so bad that literally a car got turned sideways in front of it, and it pushed that car several hundred feet down the road before everything came to a stop, damaging the front end of the RV. And the damage is still there. They basically, in fact, I was talking to an expert about it this morning, and the way it was described is basically they did a really good job on all the paint job that they did from the outside. They did a superior job on how it looked, but when you actually got into it and saw what had occurred and what the damage still was on the inside, they did an inferior job of trying to fix things. And the worst part of it is at 1.1 million, that's a $500,000 loss on that RV easily, if you can find somebody who's willing to buy it at all, not knowing what the seriousness of the accident was that it got into in the first place.
So you're telling me that somebody went out, bought a $1.1 million motor coach. It had to be a motor coach. And while it was being delivered from the plant to the dealer, it was in an accident. Sounds like a good accident. And the dealer fixed it up, or the manufacturer fixed it up. Somebody fixed it up and passed it along to this sucker, the buyer, that paid a price for a brand new RV, not a pre-wrecked RV, and covered it up. And he didn't find out about it until after he had made the purchase.
Would you like to know who fixed it up? The factory.
I would.
It literally was turned around and sent back to the factory, where the factory then patched it up, sent it back down to the dealer. The dealer promptly took it to an RV show, and there, sitting, it looked beautiful. And what they told the buyer was, well, this little corner down here on the bottom front of the cap, the front end cap, well, that got scuffed. It got scuffed and scraped there, and right over here on the side by that door, the component door, just around the corner from it. Those two things
fine. Everything, no
polished them up. Pardon?
I said everything's fine. Yeah, just sign right here. It's only 1.1 million. No problem.
They called it an incident. They didn't call it what it was, which was an accident that caused substantial damage to the front end of the RV, particularly behind the outside. You get into the mechanics of it, and that's where you see it. In fact, when you take a close look at what was sold to the guy and you see what's going on there, essentially there's a huge amount of fiberglass plastered up in there to try to solidify what got smacked.
Is it required? Would the dealer, or I don't even know if the dealer knew, and I know this is probably, as I said, ongoing investigation. You can't say a whole lot, but it would seem to me that a dealer or a manufacturer would be required to disclose that this thing was in an accident and let the buyer know what he was buying, and so he could make a rational decision based upon all available information. Are they not required to give that info?
They are, if they want to avoid fraud. The quintessential definition of fraud is essentially a lie. But a lie can exist by not telling you something that they know that you would want to know. Like, for instance, this $1 million coach I'm selling you got really messed up in an accident where it smacked somebody and pushed their car down the road a couple of hundred feet. That's how bad the accident was. But don't worry, we just polished up and repainted right here in this spot and in that spot, and everything's good. When in reality, that's not true. that part about just this spot and that spot, that's not true. Instead, it was a whole lot more serious. And in this particular case, the dealer seems to have known just as much as the factory about it, because they were the ones who pointed out to the buyer that it had this little incident where this got scraped and that got scuffed. And they made that specific representations. And then later on, when asked about it, the salesman says, well, that's what I was told to say.
Oh, that sounds like a good one, Mr. Burdge. I mean,
well, it
it's
looks like
sad. What's that?
But the worst part of it is this kind of thing shouldn't happen in any business, let alone the recreational vehicle business, where people spend part of their retirement, part of their savings to buy a good RV. They should be getting at least an honest shake from the seller.
I just can't imagine that when the buyer finally found out. How long after they purchased did the light bulb go on and they say, "Oh my God, what did we get into?" Was it right away or?
Not right away. No, they had some mechanical problems, and that was the pressing issue at the outset. And then they did eventually realize that things weren't right with this. And the first thing they did to check on it was they decided, well, let's run a Carfax on this. They ran a Carfax, and bam, there it was.
Really? Oh my God.
But
you know what's going to happen. I mean, I can imagine the manufacturer is going to say, let's get our expert witnesses. How much is this going to cost us? There's nothing wrong with that vehicle and we didn't have to do it. Here's the reason why we didn't. But I think, like you said, the basis of fraud is a lie. And it sounds like they were just lying, trying to pass off something.
Well, that other case I had back in 2018, we never even had to file suit. A couple of months after we notified them that this is what's coming down the road, it all settled.
Did these people try to, whoever the manufacturer was, did they try to settle with them and before they even contacted you, or they just say, this is BS, spend $1 million, we're going to the big dog, we're contacting Ron Burdge? Did they try to settle it? Interesting
enough, they actually, the buyers actually contacted the factory and the dealer, and both of them basically blew it off.
Oh, bad decision. Very, very bad decision.
That would be a bad decision for a $30,000 coach. It is crazy bad when you get to this kind of a money level.
So what a story, right? From what Ron was saying, does it sound like fraud to you? Or do you think that the buyer was just being too picky? I don't know, $1.1 million? Should the dealer and the manufacturer have disclosed to the buyer that the coach was in an accident before he bought the RV? Or was it the buyer's responsibility to discover the damage before buying it? This should be a good one to follow for sure. Now, while something like this will probably never happen to you or to me, I see at least two takeaways here. First, if it's a motorized, if it's a motorhome, running a Carfax on the unit may be a really good idea. And second, no matter what kind of RV you buy, an independent third-party inspection is also a good idea. At least it's worth considering. All right, let me know your thoughts on this one. I do look forward to seeing them. Thanks for joining me here on Wingman Nation. Make sure and be the best, most honest wingman or wingwoman you can be. And I'll see you again real soon. Happy camping, everybody. Bye-bye.